Welcome to Dan Really Likes Wine, and welcome to Meerendal, a wine estate with which I have a rather interesting and slightly unusual history. I kind of knew about the estate. I knew there was this South African Swiss business tycoon who was somehow involved with it and also had a medical obsession with bicycles. But it was only when he tracked me down to Johannesburg, stalked me and insisted on meeting me that I really got to know somebody who over the years has become a good friend over our shared love of skiing, our shared love of cheese fondue, although I eat a little more of it than he does, and most importantly for the context of this, a love of wine. And Herman, that's something that I've always loved about you, is your love of wine is partly because you have a business and you do run it, and you run it extremely well. But every time we have a conversation about wine, your eyes light up, and it really is something that you have found a very special place in your heart for.
Yeah, Dan, I must say it's always been very close to me. I always loved wine, I always drink wine, and fortunately for some reason I got involved into the business as well. So no, yeah, absolutely.
This is the estate that you now get to call home when you're in South Africa, but it almost wasn't yours at all, because a story that's very poignant for this particular show, Michael Jordan, who bullied me into starting Dan Really Likes Wine nearly a decade ago, is the owner of an estate called Bartony, but that was almost the estate that you had.
Yeah, that's it. It's actually a very interesting story. You may remember that David Hicks was involved here at Meerendal at the time, and David and I had this idea of creating this small boutique winery and also a very upmarket restaurant. But then at the time I got involved in that estate. We actually entered into an agreement to buy it. And then, yeah, Michael came to me and he said, listen, this estate is actually coming from my family, and I really, really don't want you to buy it. And then I considered and said, okay, I will let it go. And then, yeah, then Michael bought it.
Well, the downside for Bartony in having an owner who's much older and nowhere near as good looking is that Meerendal instead has you as its proprietor. And this is an estate that has an extraordinary history. And we generally know that South African wine goes back a bit, and we've been making it for a while. But you've only recently discovered just how far back it goes, and with this farm, just how many years ago you were actually making and sending wine to Europe.
In 1714, Meerendal already exported 56,000 litres of wine out of South Africa.
In 1714?
Yeah, exactly.
We sent 56,000 litres off to Europe.
Exactly.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Because a very good friend of us is doing a PhD on these old farm, let's call it farms around the area.
You've always had a sense of history and heritage here. The heritage block Pinotage is reflecting the love of history I know you have personally, but to now be able to take the story of Meerendal back even further, that just casts a whole new lens on what you do here and what your identity is as a wine farm.
This information is so valuable for the farm, and we want to build on that. We want to see what else we can find. That's really important for us, and it becomes part of what we want to be and where we want to go with the farm.
For me, so much of wine is storytelling, and that's what captures our imagination as much as anything in the glass. Why is the storytelling of this history so important to you? Why do you feel it's so important to our wine industry?
Well, Dan, you know what, we are effectively a young, if I can call it a young wine country, if you compare it with the European wineries. And it's so important that we tell the story of where we are and where we came from. And yeah, everything that we can discover and everything that we can prove and that exists, I think that's important for the wine industry, to show that it's not really as young as what people believe it to be. There's actually real substance behind it as far as the wine industry is concerned.
You as someone who has, as a South African, gone abroad, you've done well, you've been a success in Europe, but you've come home, you've come back to South Africa, and you've put so much back in to Meerendal, but to the community as well. And that says to me that there is just this absolute drive to come home and to celebrate where you come from.
So we really love South Africa. We're very passionate about South Africa. And yeah, proud. You're really proud about our country, and if we can do anything to contribute to the history of the country and to the winemaking business in general, we would obviously do that, and we love to do that.
You are also, though, doing a great job abroad, and I think Engelberg in Switzerland is the only town in Europe where every single restaurant stocks Pinotage, which is down to your single-minded insistence on visiting every restaurant in town, and that is led by a wine that ties everything up so nicely here at Meerendal. You have that heritage block, now 70 years old, of Pinotage, as South Africa's 100-year-old grape this year, and that's a lovely metaphor, I think, for what you do here at Meerendal, celebrating this sense of history, but also doing so in a very modern and stylistically up-to-date way.
Yeah, Dan, you know, that block was planted in 1955. It's one of the last remaining Pinotage blocks in the country, one of the oldest in the country, and we're very proud of it. We've got 5 hectares there, which is it's very valuable. This year it's been doing exceptionally well. We had a very good yield this year. So our direction in terms of where we're going with that block is really important to us, and I think it's going to be interesting for the market as well.
Well, the Wade in question is Wade Roger Lund, the winemaker, and he is ready and waiting to take me up to have a look at these vines. They are 70 years old, so significantly older than Herman and only just older than me. What do they taste like? What do they look like? How can they possibly still be delivering? Well, let me head out into the vines and find out. Were I to have arrived with a cap or hat of some sort, I would have taken it off by now. I feel like I should be in a jacket and tie, really, as an act of deference to the vineyard in which I find myself, because, Wade, the vines that surround us are not just 70 years old, but they're 70-year-old and they think they're teenagers.
Yeah, exactly. They produced this year like they're 20-year-old vines. It's amazing. It really is.
This is the heritage block. This produces a very special Pinotage that Meerendal delivers each year, as well as wine for a lot of others. This is something that for most people would seem far too old to still be going, let alone going as well as it is. What's the magic to these vines?
I don't know, there's something really special about this whole block of Pinotage. It's the original clone of Pinotage, and they're happy in the soils that we have here, the climate that we have here. Just year after year it keeps on performing, and it's amazing. It really is. I can't pinpoint what's really doing well for them.
Old vine is a term that's bandied about a lot, and we don't always dive into it perhaps as much as we could. Why, at 70 years of age, are you still keeping these going and not ripping them all out and giving you something that's going to give you far more fruit every year?
And at 70 years old, the concentration of fruit that we get in the grapes is it's astounding. So that's the main driving factor. Is this block is quality driven, and it's got its place, and it will. In my time, I hope it will never be pulled out.
Quality is an easy term to use. Dig a bit deeper there. What to you as a winemaker does quality mean? What are you getting from these grapes that say to you as a winemaker, I can do something special?
Yeah, so it's just the cleanliness of the bunches. You know, when the bunches come in, I can see that there's nothing funny in them. They're perfectly round spheres, smooth skins. The skins are just the right thickness. You know, the pulp is just the right amount. The acid is perfect. The pH is perfect.
What about Pinotage itself? It's a grape that's got a checkered history. It hasn't always been everybody's favourite. We're now at a stage in 2025 where the breadth of style of Pinotage, the interpretation differs wherever you may go. What does this offer you in terms of contributing to that story?
Yeah, look, I think there's a few of these original pair-old clones, and they've got a different aspect to give to Pinotage in South Africa, in that the more modern clones of Pinotage were made a bit stronger. You know, the inherent feistiness of Pinot Noir comes through in these blocks, so that it's a bit difficult to farm compared to the more modern Pinotage clones.
You dropped a name there that's rather important, the Perold clone. 100 years since the good professor gave us Pinotage. So not only is that a heritage block in terms of, well, it's very old, but it takes its ancestry directly back to that very first experiment in Stellenbosch 100 years ago.
Yeah, so I mean, that's the amazing thing with this block and the 4 other blocks that are still in existence is they came from the original Perold crossing. It really is. It's history. This is you know, in the 100th anniversary of Pinotage, these 4 blocks are historical and they should be treated as heritage items. And I think we're doing the right thing to promote them and keep them that way.
Let us not confuse age of vine with age of wine. What we're drinking is not going to taste like it is 70 years old when it is first met. We're about to have a glass. This vintage is?
This is the 2023 vintage of the Heritage
Okay, so
block.
this is the newest vintage that you have going out to the world. What are we getting in this glass that you can connect the dots back to on the grapes that just a few weeks ago were still hanging for the vintage going forward?
Got that fruit spectrum, that bright red fruit that's almost a burgundy style Pinot Noir is coming out there. It's got that spice, it's got that inherent little astringency of Pinotage. You know, it's a cultivar thing, so it has to be there. I didn't want to try get it away too much, but just the elegance of the fruit, the elegance of the tannin, so it's much softer tannin structure. It's a massive array of wines styles that you can get out of Pinotage, and everyone's palate is different, and I believe there is a Pinotage to suit everyone's palate.
All right, I think this is going to suit quite a few palates. I love the sense of history as well. I'm an absolute sucker for heritage stories, and this is a terrific one. And yet, at 70 years old, which already is, it's only 20 years younger than my mum, who watches the show regularly, it is still not the oldest, because you've got something even older here.
Yeah, so we've just recently managed to get 25 vines on the farm certified. That's based off an aerial photo we have from 1938 that you can still see the vines there. So it was probably planted before that, but we've accepted 1938 as its year. So it's now the oldest block in the Wine of Origin Cape Town scheme. It used to be the Pinotage, it's now the Muscat, so it's quite a cool story.
Well, it might be older, but 1938 is still pretty good.
Yeah.
I'm delighting in the age and history of this, but 1938 has got me just as excited, so let's head off. If this is not old enough, 70 years old, the vines from which these grapes came, we're going back to vines that are probably 90 years and older and see how they're shaping up with their very first vintage. So if the 1955 Heritage Block Pinotage vines are of the lawn bowls twice a week and the occasional round of golf variety, and the grapes we're about to talk about are possibly getting in a hand of bridge once a month and maybe the odd game of Scrabble, because these are, almost 90 years old now, Wade.
Yeah, no, they're getting on there. Certified at 1938, probably a bit older than that, but that's where we've got them certified at. It's amazing.
It's such a cool story to be able to look at what seems to be a relatively youthful and flourishing group of vines and think that almost a century ago somebody decided, let's plant these.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. I mean, you wouldn't think looking at them, they are so vibrant, so full of life. And then if you look at the trunks, they are these monster trunks and cordons. It's amazing. It really.
And they do have that gnarled, weather-beaten look of an early retired Englishman who's been living in the sunshine of Spain for 20 years. And they have that feel to them. And yet they're still amazingly producing some grapes, although not with quite as much history as the Pinotage. This is a relatively new project.
Yeah, so this is the first year that we're actually making a wine from it. It's taken about 2 years with Sarvis to get it registered. We've registered with Sarvis and we've registered with the Old Vine Project, and then this year was the first year that I could actually make wine from it. So we harvested about 124 kilograms of grapes from these 25 vines, and
Well, what does that give you in terms of wine?
it gave me just short of 100 liters. So it's a fortified wine, sweet wine. So sitting in a little 100 liter barrel right now. It's just gone in about a week ago. So it's doing some aging now, and it's exciting. It's a cool project. It's cool.
Now, we haven't mentioned the grape in question. For me, it's always one of the completely throws you grapes when you're starting your wine journey. It is Muscat d'Alexandrie, and it's that crazy wine when you take it on the nose and you think someone's poured a gallon of unrefined lychee juice into a glass. It just hits you with this diabetes, come and get me blast of sugar. And then you try it on the palate, and it's just this absolutely bone dry, no character accountant in a glass. The contrast is staggering, and it just is this unique element to Muscat d'Alexandrie.
Yeah, so they, the nice thing is we sort of pick this block in a little bit of stages as well. And what you've got there is our last bunches that are sitting on there that have still got that tart acid that will come back at a later stage. But the rest that we've already harvested, they really reached that nice sort of, I'd say, pigeon egg size, where they were soft and they were crunchy and just had really good sugar acid balance. And now then that comes in with the acid balance again, just to fine tune it a bit.
So this is going to become, or the siblings of this particular grape are going to become a sweet wine. What's the process? How do you take something like this and then create the wine that you will?
So we're just going to let them basically sit here. So they sit on their vine and they do their thing, and long after harvest is finished, probably in May, once I've forgotten about harvest, I'll come back and I'll come pick them, and then we get that sweetness that we want in the wine as well.
So only 100 litres you've got into this barrel.
Yeah.
It is a tiny amount of wine. What's that, like 350,000 rand a bottle?
No, I wish that would be amazing. No, I think it will be somewhere around the 800 rand a bottle mark, a 350 ml, nice proper dumpy bottle to sort of go back to the heritage of sweet wines of South Africa, the Grand Constances, the Vinde Constances, that same sort of lineage. And I think it's only fitting for this old vine to produce a little bit of something special.
And I think that's the tribute that this vine deserves. It's managed to somehow see off what I'm sure were many attempts to get rid of it over the 88 plus years that we've had it.
Yeah.
And now you're translating it into a wine that also has this heritage, the original Grand Constance out of Constantia, going back to the wine Napoleon used to drink, and now taking something in that style, not just because it works for it, but it also helps you to celebrate this little stretch of history.
Oh yeah, look, and I mean, I worked hard to save this. If you look behind us there, or in front of us, the building for the restaurant encroached very tightly on those vineyards, and it was very close to taking out 4 of them, and stopped it and said, no, these are my pet project, and we're going to make them stand up for what they are.
Well, I hope you do, because it is such a wonderful slice of wine history.
Yeah.
And all wine is a sense of time travel when it takes you back to whenever it was made, but not often are the grapes from almost 100 years back. So that makes this extra special, and in turn makes a project I'll be more than happy to spend that 800 rand on a bottle of, and I'm really excited to see what comes out.
Yeah,
very
thank you.
quickly as we finish off. So what we're drinking now, it almost looks like we've got water in the glass.
It's quite watery, yeah. It's
I was a
settled.
bit suspicious when you gave it to me, but
It's settled quite nicely now. It got a bit of settling in the barrel now, so it's actually come really clear. It was that normal late harvest sweet wine. It really was quite almost muddy. Let's call it that, muddy. And it's actually settled out quite nicely.
nothing like what it is going to become eventually.
No.
But that transition is fascinating, as it is delightful. Well, I know you had some help with it, because there's an elderly gentleman with a world-class moustache who we met a little earlier on in the show. So let's head back, catch up with Herman, and see just what this extraordinary estate of Meerendal, with its rich, rich history, has to look forward to in its future. It's been a real history lesson today at Meerendal, from Herman taking us back to 1714 and the 56,000 litres of wine exported from Meerendal. That's over 300 years ago, which is extraordinary. And then drinking wine from blocks that are 70 and then almost 90 years old. In all of that history, though, it's the history of Herman and Aletta and the family that is most immediate. When you look at where you've got to today with Meerendal, and where you were when you first started, when the Bartney deal didn't work out, you'd decided to come over and look at Meerendal instead, is where you find yourself today where you might have expected?
I think our idea was always to have a nice small winery where you can, do interesting things and where you can control everything. And yeah, I think we end up with a bit more than what we originally budgeted for. But it worked out quite well. And I must say today we are really happy with where we are. We are really happy where the estate are and the contribution that we could have made to the estate. I think in terms of a lot of things, buildings, the vines, the wines. Where its contribution towards the winemaking, the quality, everything is going in the right direction. So no, I must say today we are really happy, and I think we are on track where we want to take the estate to.
Where I often think of winemaking as being the marriage of the winemaker and her or his philosophy with the terroir of the estate in question. But there is another part of that puzzle, the other part of the triangle perhaps, which is the owner of the wine estate. And there have been one or two documented cases of owners knowing far better than winemakers as to what they should do. In the case of yourself and Herman and Aletta, there does seem to be very much a shared philosophy and a similar idea of where you are and where you would like to be.
Their vision for Meerendal matches my philosophy. And I think that's what's made this whole new transition over the last 3 years that much more streamlined and efficient. And it really is, it's how we work together, it's how we discuss everything, how we process everything, and it's working for the better of this historical farm.
You do, though, in Herman in particular, have someone who has a brilliant new idea every 8 minutes. How do you politely just sometimes tell him, no, Herman, I don't think we need a 9th Pinotage Bubbles Rosé this year?
Yeah, look, he does, I must admit, he comes up with some ideas very, very quickly and very spontaneously. The nice thing is he does give me now, I think we're up to about, he gives me 10 minutes to think about it and come back to it. He allows me to think about it, process it, and give back an answer to him. So that's a nice part as well.
It is very much you, Herman, that you love having these ideas. I think it's some of the things we've done here, wine being pressed by riders riding over them out of the manor house, or elephants tap dancing on grapes, or you've had all these crazy ideas. But all of that boils down to storytelling, but storytelling with a purpose, with integrity, and creating new ways of taking the wine that you love to more people, and just finding ways of doing that.
Yeah, no, Dan. Yeah, storytelling is one thing, but you have to back it up. And I think our focus now, especially with Wade, and we totally agree, we both agree on that, is that we really want to work on the quality now. We really want to work on the organic wines that we are making. And yeah, we want the story to have substance and to have quality behind it.
So if I come back, Herman, to catch up with you and Aletta in 5 years' time, and with apologies, it's going to happen a lot more than that and a lot sooner. But if we go forward in 5 years, where is Meerendal? What have you done? What have you created? At what stage of the story have you reached?
Yeah, we want to be in the pinnacle of the winemaking world in South Africa. That's really, we want to be up there with the best, and that's really our aim.
I think you're heading in the right direction, and I know you well enough to know that you're not going to stop until you get there. It's been a really fun day. I thought I knew Meerendal pretty well, but I've learned an awful lot today, and particularly that history and going back as far as you do and doing as much as you did over 300 years ago was brilliant. In fact, I actually saw the document from 1714 that Benny Howard had signed off on when he sent the wine over to Europe, and lovely to have him still part of the team today. It is always so exciting, and so expect more visits officially to chronicle the story, but really just because I love coming and I love hanging out here, and because there's always something so exciting happening at Meerendal.
Thank you, Dan. Always welcome.
Oh, well, guys, cheers. And thank you.
Cheers.
And if you happen to find yourself in the Durbanville area, and we've said that a number of times on the show, it's a growing and exciting area, but it's this particular area, look out for a gentleman called Herman with a perfectly sculpted moustache and a head full of ideas. I've got no idea what he's going to do next. Probably he doesn't either at this point of time, but whatever it will be amazing, and will continue to contribute to a story that's well over 300 years old, but I suspect is only just getting started. Cheers.